Rabbi Manis Friedman. Thank God it's Tuesday. Absolutely my favorite show of the entire week. I think the most needed show. And it's amazing to have you on every Tuesday. Thank you so much. And the topic that I would love to raise today, and which I think is also very much in line with today's times, with the Torah portion of the week, is how can one become a leader of goodness? We have so many different leaders in the world, leaders in finance, leaders in entertainment, leaders in politics, leaders in everything, but not that many leaders in goodness. How can one become that?
You think that's what we need?
I think that's what we need more than anything.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, you're probably right. More than anything. And how does it fit with the weekly portion?
Well, we're speaking about one of the best influencers of our times, of our history, actually, not our times, all times. And that would be, of course, Abraham, who out of nowhere just led a whole new movement and led people in the right direction. Towards God, of course.
So if we're going to look to his model and try to learn from him, how did he have influence? What was his method? What was his gimmick? What was his trick? It's really a little bit against popular assumption. You know, we think of people back then, we're talking 4,000 years ago, we think of people back then as not completely evolved. You know, still a little brainless, a little primitive. But it's not true. It's not true. They were very intelligent people. And the idolatry was intelligent. It was not ridiculous. You know, create a little figurine out of wood and then bow to it. No. It was not that unintelligent. There was a lot of thought and a lot of reason behind the idolatry. The first argument was, God is very busy. God is very big. Creating this world was not a big, impressive activity for God. It was one of the, minor things that he does. Pop out a universe every 6 days. Well, no big deal. No big deal. So he must have gone on to bigger and better things after creating the world. And he left the sun and the moon, the zodiac signs. They're in charge. They're running the world now. Of course, they didn't create the world. That's ridiculous. But they're in charge. And so we should, we owe them a certain amount of gratitude or allegiance. And God would want us to honor those forces or those beings that he entrusted the world to. Like a king with his ministers. If you respect the king, you got to respect his ministers. And so they worshiped the idols, not because they thought the idols created the world. They knew that there was a great creator who was busy. Can't reach him. So if you want the world to function, you have to thank the ministers, encourage the ministers, pray to the ministers that they do their job. Because now they are running the world. which very simply means God created laws of nature, and those laws now govern the world. God has withdrawn, and what's keeping the world going, or what makes the world go round, are the laws of nature. So you have to respect that. And you have to be grateful to those laws, those forces. And so you have the god of thunder and you have the god of fertility, meaning the power of fertility, the power of electricity, lightning, thunder. They weren't worshiping the sound. They were worshiping the power and the effect of it, the laws of nature, which we pretty much do today. What was their mistake? Avraham came along and said, yes, it's appropriate to respect the king's ministers and to honor them, and maybe even to turn to them for help. You need some money, you go to the minister of finance. So the mistake is that ministers have free choice. They didn't become ministers without their agreement. They were appointed, they accepted the job, and every day that they come to work, it's because they choose to. I don't know if it's a free choice. You really can't say no to the king. So if he says you're the minister, then you don't have that much choice. But many ministers come very willingly. They love their position, they love their job, they love their country, they love their king. So it is appropriate to thank them for their participation because they're participating voluntarily, at least partly voluntarily. That is not true of the forces of nature. Gravity does not have free choice. It doesn't schlep things down because it wants to. And then one day it can wake up and say, today I don't want to. To make sure that that doesn't happen, you got to keep him in a good mood. It can't happen. The laws of nature, the forces of nature are completely involuntary. They don't have a will, they don't have an opinion, and they don't have a choice. So what are you thanking? That's like thanking the carpenter's hammer for building the house. You don't thank the hammer because the hammer has no say in the matter. Even a waiter in a restaurant deserves a tip. Why? Because he could not show up for work that day. Or he can refuse to bring you what you ordered. He'll bring you what he thinks you should have. Because he has free choice. So if he does what he's supposed to do and he brings you what you ordered, you got to thank him. But the laws of nature are not even a waiter at in a restaurant. They're just a tool. So you can thank the waiter and you can thank the chef. You don't thank the frying pan. So that's what Avraham was telling his generation. Be intelligent, understand. And it worked. It worked. People do respond to reason, intelligence, and the goodness behind it.
Rabbi Friedman, I guess that's what it is. Oh, I'm hearing an echo for some reason again. Okay, it's better. This is exactly my question. What kind of reason would work on the world today? At that time, the world was different. And he explained who to thank. What do we need to explain now to the world in order to be, I don't want to say like Abraham, but sort of like Abraham?
Yes, you can say that because we didn't really change that much. Like this guy who said, Same rules from 3,000 years ago? Come on. It's time to update the rules in the Torah. So I said, if you come up with a new sin, we'll make new rules. As long as you're committing the same old sin, the same old rules apply. And we haven't come up with a new sin. It's amazing, in 3,000 years. So we haven't really changed that much. The issues are pretty much the same. The technology is different. Our makeup, our experiences are somewhat different, but the issues are the same. Part of the appeal to what Abraham was saying is the inherent goodness behind it, not just pure logic. If you want to go with pure logic, yes, you're right. The laws of nature are just like tools, like a hammer in the hand of a carpenter, and they don't deserve any thanks. But what's wrong if you do thank them? No harm done. What's so terrible? It's not very effective. It doesn't change the laws of nature if you pray to it or you sacrifice your firstborn. All right. So it's not very effective, but it's, interesting ritual. It's a thing to do. The decency in us does not allow it. So the argument against it really not only appeals to our mind, but it appeals to our sensitivities as well. It's not right to worship something that is more helpless than you. So not only is it not intelligent, it's not right. It's beneath the dignity of a human being. It demeans you. It diminishes you. It's not good for life. It's not good for the human condition. So there is a moral issue, in a sense. And that's what made it so compelling. Avraham's argument was not purely academic. As brilliant as it was true to life. So we have to assume two things. Human beings are intelligent. They were always intelligent because that's what a human being is. We were never animals. God created human beings. That means intelligent beings. So don't ever underestimate the power of logic and wisdom as it affects human behavior. But secondly, human beings are also purposeful creatures by our very essence. In our DNA is made up of purpose. You can make the most brilliant logical argument. If it doesn't have a purpose, the human inside of us loses interest. Not compelling. Yeah, that was very smart, but I don't see the relevance. So that's the second side to the human being. There's a mind and there's a heart. Some arguments, some theories, philosophies appeal to the mind, but it has no appeal to the heart. Aristotle was brilliant. The heart didn't really relate much to what he was saying because it was too idealistic. It was detached from reality. It was a little harsh, unforgiving. But brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And then there are those philosophies that appeal purely to the heart. It's purely subjective. It's just a way of riling up feelings that move people to behave a certain way, but there's no sense to it. There's no order to it. And therefore, there's no permanence to it. It's a little chaotic. If you can have a teaching, a wisdom that is both brilliantly logical and inspiringly meaningful to life, to who we are and what we're doing here. That is so compelling, no one can resist it. So some people will react more to the logic because that's their temperament. Some people will react more to the emotional appeal, but it's not one without the other.
Rabbi Friedman, but what got us to this point? What kind of logic got us to communism, socialism, fascism, and all the falsehood, fakeness, and disorder that we're experiencing in the world right now?
You mean if we're so smart, how did we get to be so stupid?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a little simplistic, but probably true. Let's use communism for an example, or socialism. People are afraid of themselves. We have no discipline. We have no control, no borders. And that's frightening. Somebody comes along and says, here's a principle that we can live by. This will govern your behavior. So it gives you a little bit of a border, a definition, an outline, like a fenced-in area where you can feel safe. It's a very good idea. And it's true. People can't live in chaos. You have to have borders. You have to have distinctions. You have to know where you belong and where you do not go. Otherwise, you have nothing to focus on. I remember we used to go fishing, and for some strange reason, I would develop an intense headache. And I couldn't figure out what it was until somebody explained, when you're in the boat, focus your eyes on the boat, not on the water. Why? Because the water has no shape. There's no end. It's just continuous water. And that feels like borderless, endless, pointless, and it gives you a headache. We need to focus on things that the mind can wrap itself around. Looking out on the ocean, you can't wrap your mind around it. So stay focused on the boat. We need that kind of... So communism came and said, here's a rule you can live by. It's a good principle. It frees the workers. It makes us all equal. Okay, that solves a big problem. It is not the definition of life. But at the moment, it seemed like such a great solution to our problem that we made it as if it was the solution to all our problems. It's the solution to one problem, and that is people can't discipline themselves. And so you have to have a strong hand with a strong principle that enforces the discipline. Well, that's a little risky. Who are you going to give that authority to? And who are you going to trust to have that kind of power and not become corrupt?
Well, we're getting a very strong hand now, and we don't like it.
Well, some of us don't like it, but obviously there are many who are voting for it because the permissiveness of our lives has become frightening. And now anybody who seems to have a strong opinion, a strong stance, is like our last hope. So a little bit we're worried about giving up too much of our freedom, but we feel a need to be disciplined. So in a sense, we are spoiled children, frightened by our own freedoms, and we're looking for a tati to take control. Good luck.
For those who don't know, Tati is daddy.
Dadushka.
Right.
We're so immature that we need an adult authority. And that borders on idolatry. So who are you going to give this authority to? Someone who himself needs an authority? See, that's idolatry. You're worshiping a minor god who himself needs a god. But this is the point. Torah is brilliant, and Torah is goodness. It's a brilliant kindness. That's what we need. And that's what people will respond to. To just say, be nice, love everybody. All right, that's good for a weekend in camp. But then you get back to real life and it doesn't work. So the reason these ideas are so welcome, I was going to say popular, but that's a matter of opinion. I got a phone call 2 days ago. A man from Tanzania, East Africa. Basically what he said was, our country needs the teachings of Torah. Why don't you teach us? You're supposed to be the teachers. Why don't you teach us? Now, he's been listening to my podcast or whatever it is. I don't know if he listened to this program, but online he's been following, and he's upset. He says, you keep talking about teaching and sharing. How come you don't come to our country? We need you. This is a native of Tanzania.
Rabbi Friedman, that is actually the question of today's program. We have the knowledge. It definitely works. 100%. Everybody needs it. How can it go out there? How can it be spread around? It seems like people are more and more ready to receive the true knowledge, the knowledge of goodness, God's laws, God's intentions. Now we're in that position. How can we get it out there, and who is going to be doing it?
Everybody. Otherwise, you're going to end up with communism again. Don't give the job to one person or to one party. Everybody. And how you do it? What exactly are we doing? We are recognizing in our brain, in our mind, I don't exist for me. Whatever I have and whatever I am, it's not for me. So it's my money, but it's not for me. It's my feelings, but they're not for me. Like love. I'm capable of love, not so that I love myself. That's like talking to myself. Speech was not created for me to talk to me. That's in the mind. We have to recognize this sensibly, logically, convincingly. We don't exist just to be who we are. And the best example, we talked about this, I think, before, if you're worth $200 billion, it's all for you? Come on, does that make any sense at all? Makes no sense.
You can buy the moon. I don't know. The Mars, moon, you can spread out.
Doesn't cost that much. It's a fixer-upper. It needs a lot of work. You can get it pretty cheap these days. So somebody lost $6 billion when the Wi-Fi went down or something. You know? Yeah, and it's nothing. If nobody told him, he would never know that he lost the $6 billion because he's worth 200 billion. So, and it's all for him. Of course not. Of course not. Not because of kindness, generosity, nobility, just logically. It's like somebody sets out a meal for you that is enough for 10 people. So it's all for you? Can't be. It's the whole cow. So the same is true with everything. My money, but it's not for me. My love, but it's not for me. And my knowledge, and it's not for me. That's number one. Number two, how do you see people suffering and not do anything about it? How do you stand by and watch people dying from loneliness and you don't do anything about it? The two go together very well. I'm not here for me, then I must be here for you. So why am I watching you suffer and not doing anything about it? That's a philosophy, a lifestyle, a moral code, all wrapped into one. So what do we need to do today? First thing is, don't worship yourself. That goes against popular culture, but popular culture is usually wrong. So don't worship yourself. You're not here to become perfect. You'll never be perfect. You're not meant to be perfect. And even if you are perfect, who's going to care? Good for you. You won all the medals. Nobody likes you. Nobody likes people who are perfect. So what's the point? Perfection is not the goal. Loving myself is not the goal. Validating myself. It's an unhealthy thinking. So the first thing is, I'm not here for me. Because I didn't ask to be born. I don't need to be born. And even if I were perfect, I would still be completely pointless in my existence. Because it's not about me. It's about the Creator. I exist because a Creator wants me to. Why does He want me to? To make this world godly. Not myself, the world around me. So if I can develop a machine that will save people who can't breathe on their own, that's what God wants. If I can encourage somebody who's about to give up, that's what God wants. Make life livable. You can do it through technology, through inventions. Whoever created the wheel, that's a huge moral accomplishment because that did so much good to the human condition. Made life so much easier for people. And even if that wasn't the intention, maybe the guy who invented the wheel was just thinking about himself because he needed to get down the hill.
I was going to say, Amazon is amazing for a lot of people, but it created a god. Bezos now is number 2.
So that's only the first step. The first step is don't live for yourself. And yes, that can make you into a billionaire. That's the trick. Those who were thinking of other and global needs became billionaires. I don't know if being rich was good for them. It corrupted them, whatever. But the reason for their success is because they weren't thinking about themselves. All of them. They were looking at the world saying, what does the world need? If you think only about yourself, you might become a millionaire. But a millionaire today, it's so embarrassing. No one will even admit. So that's step number one. You're not here for you. Step number two. How can you stand by and watch people suffer? Combine those two things, and you will immediately start making the world a better place. So, for example, you have coins in your pocket every day. Well, some people. We're practically coinless. Everything is credit cards and paper money. But most people have coins in their pocket. What do you do with them? You throw them on the dresser at night, and you don't know what to do to get rid of them. There are people who can benefit greatly from those coins. Why don't you think about them once in a while? So the idea of having a charity box in your bedroom, in your car, in your office, every time there's a spare dollar, loose change, loose change, turn it into a mitzvah. Think who needs it. And this is a perfect example. Like, I don't need this pocket full of coins. It's an annoyance. Okay, that's step number one. Step number two is, if you don't need it, then who is it intended for? Don't just stop with, I don't need this. I don't need it, so who does? I'm not here for me, then who am I here for? That's completing the picture. So just that idea itself, have a charity box so that what you don't need will go to someone who does. Does that make sense?
Total sense.
And isn't that kindness at its highest level? No one is begging, and yet you're thinking of people who might need. So you're not waiting for them to come beg. You're putting aside money for them without their even knowing it. That is the highest form of charity. So it's both a moral, beautiful, social value, and it makes so much sense. That's what the world needs, and that's what's going to turn us around and complete the plan of making the world a godly place.
Rabbi Friedman, everything that's happening right now, at least what is seen up front, is actually the exact opposite. What we see is greed, egotism, and actually, unfortunately, the opposite of everything you just said. Now, I'm sure God, who is infinite and who is not limited to time, knew that all of this was going to happen. If he knew it was going to happen, why did he need to have it happen? What is the purpose of all this corruption?
Yes, there is greed and there's corruption and there's also shameless. It's shameless. There is no shame. And that's because the ungodliness, the greed, the corruption, the evil, it's run out of steam. It doesn't even know how to protect itself anymore. And so it's just raw, unfiltered darkness, which is lifeless. It's gone. It's dead. God allows us to work out our own appreciation, recognition of what is true and what is valuable versus the junk. Why it's taking us so long? That's a good question, but it's too embarrassing to talk about. But finally, we're coming around to it. We're recognizing on our own, which is the hard way. We could have taken God's word for it and saved ourselves a lot of grief. But no, we don't do that. We're a stiff-necked people. Until I am absolutely convinced of it myself, I don't believe anything. Okay, so convince yourself. Knock yourself out. And that's what we're doing. We're knocking ourselves out until we are completely and thoroughly convinced that what the Torah said in the first place is really true.
So you're saying everything that is happening right now is validation?
Yes, it's our way of coming to the right conclusions through hard experience, which leaves no room for doubt. And faith always leaves a little room for doubt. Yes, I know God is probably right. He knows best, probably. In most circumstances, yeah, he does. And for everybody else, he does. So everybody else should follow what God says, but I have to check things out for myself. Okay, so check it out. See what happens.
Rabbi Friedman, but we had so many experiences of similar kind already, and the flood is a good proof of it. And then so much after the flood has taken place, even in the last century, we had so much proof. Is this the final one, or are we going to keep on hitting our head against the wall for a while longer?
If it were up to me to guess, I would say, no, this is going to keep on going. We can always say, well, that was then. Sure, then. But now, it's a different world now. For those people, sure, but not for me. We can always do that endlessly. So if I had to guess, I would say, yeah, it's going to go on forever. But thank God, he gave us a Torah, and he said, I will not let this go on forever. I want my world, and I want it corrected. So you guys may have fun going on forever this way, but I don't. It's not my thinking here. So no, I will not let it go on forever, and that is very good news. So it will not go on forever. According to the Torah, it has a very limited time left to sort itself out, hopefully in a peaceful, painless way, because we have enough scars. We don't need any more. So until we actually get there, we should at least not hurt ourselves any more than necessary and not leave any permanent scars. But we're definitely going to get there, and we're definitely very close to it. We have all the tools necessary, thanks to the internet. We have the need, thanks to the craziness of life. And I think we're convinced.
And we have you to reassure us at least once a week on Thursday Radio, which is priceless, Rabbi Friedman. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, as always, this time goes by so fast. And we're super grateful to you for allocating this time to us and the rest that you allocate to the world on daily basis, on hourly basis. Rabbi Friedman, we want to be like you. You're the best leader, spiritual leader of our times, and it's amazing. Thank you so much for everything you do.
That is very, very generous of you. Overly generous. But all I'm doing really is reflecting what I'm hearing and seeing. And that's why I'm so confident about it. This is not a theory. when people from Tanzania, as he pronounced it, or Tanzania, call up and say, we, this country, we need Torah's instructions, where's the doubt?
Rabbi Friedman, thank you so much. Thank you for this time every week. Unfortunately, we're about to be cut off, and I don't want that to happen. So thank you so much. I can't wait till our next meeting next week, and to hear more good news and more wisdom from you as we do every week. Thank you so much.